So, at some point in the continuing history of the world, I think this novel's going to be published. I keep on tinkering with it endlessly, and, I've been doing so for several years, as people like the great Jeanette Beckman will confirm. So I'm going to take you to the book. See, it's semi-autobiographical. So it is centered around this. There's a girl rock journalist, a girl music journalist, and she has a friend, a girl called Thrill, who writes a bit, but is going to become a musician. She's going to become a fantastic singer-songwriter, but a lot of the people around are not very open to letting her in. But anyway, we've all gone on a trip to New York from England. And our protagonist has just had a very close moment spent with a gentleman from an American soul band, one of those bands that wore very, very flamboyant clothing, So she's just realizing that, she's completely been taken for a ride, basically. So she's just sort of having a big wake-up call, and as that goes on, she finds that not only is her world in disarray, but that also half the people in the crew seem to have somehow got lost in the exciting vortex of New York in the 1970s. So among the vanished, among the disappeared, is young Thrill. So Anya, our protagonist, sets off to find her. Anya hails a cab. "Take me to the Life Cafe," I say, sliding into the narrow back seat. Anybody who remember the old Life Cafe? Oh, yeah. So take me to the Life Cafe. It used to be right by Tompkins Square Park. It was like one of the major old-school Lower East Sider hangouts. The driver was a massive Haitian with a wide neck. "Why you want to go there?" he inquired laconically. "You better give me danger money to go there, mademoiselle. Only bad people go there. Not you, nice English mademoiselle. What's so terrible about this place?" That being Alphabet City. I shouted. He shook his head slowly. "You'll see." The further we went down Houston Street, punctuated by hissing sprays of steam bursting irregularly through grills in the tarmac from the subway below, the more the atmosphere charged up. Groups of Latinos had spilled out on the street, and as the cab turned up into Avenue B, where the gaps between the houses looked as if they'd been bombed, in front of red tenements, small knots of people hung around singing, banging bongos and congas. The hump of Manhattan's backside, Alphabet City was the hinterland between First Avenue and the East River, topped by the toxic towers of a huge electrical plant. Here, the civilized reasoning of Manhattan's numbered thoroughfares devolved into a child's babble of letters. A, B, C, D, avenues of mystery, unknown to those who dwelled in the heights above 14th Street. The night was so sweltering that a match flung on the sidewalk might ignite the city. Buxom brown ladies in short shorts, tight T-shirts and high-heeled sandals sat with legs akimbo on plastic chairs set in front of storefronts, fanning themselves, though it was long past midnight. On the sidewalk, skinny figures in denim and leather drifted past like restless ghosts, wearing shades to prevent moon glare. The Life Cafe might have been designated as a portal to the underworld. Day-glow murals of dancing skeletons buzzed on the black walls. A few raggedy-looking people sat chatting quietly at the tables. Behind the bar sat a tattooed Latino guy in a vest that revealed muscles like rolling hills, curly dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that brushed sculpted shoulders, an earring in one ear, and tight black jeans, immersed in reading the Village Voice. It was the graffiti artist I'd met the other night, Romantic, the one with the intriguing eyes. "Excuse me," I said, aware that my accent had an exotic BBC World Service ring in this murky lair. "We sort of met the other night. I'm visiting from London, and one of my friends seems to have got herself lost. You don't by any chance know someone called Steve Metal. Steve Metal is a very dodgy rock star who thinks he's all that, and he thinks that partly because most of the world seems to think it too. Who wants to know? Answered the man. Don't worry, I'm not his wife. He gazed back, stone-faced. Sorry, actually, he's a friend of a friend, the Majestics. The Majestics being the band with whom Anya had just had a close encounter. The man's expression softened somewhat. You mean Rodney? Yes, actually, Rodney's an awfully good friend. She's not letting on that Rodney's just totally stitched her up. If this carried on, I'd choke on the plums in my mouth. I felt like the Queen on her Christmas broadcast to the nation. My family are pleased to announce that as we gather round the tree, our awfully good friend, the masturbating rhythm and blues legend Rodney Majestic, is in our thoughts. He'll be somewhere around, replied the barman with a soft brown velvet sibilance, in the neighbourhood. Any idea where? It's quite important. The barman scrutinised me with inscrutable eyes. I'm flying back to London tomorrow. He leaned in towards me. Why are you here, really? Well, ignoring the philosophical implications of the question, I really need to talk to Steve Metal, I said, transfixed by suddenly registering his eyes' infinite depths. He laughed. A spark. Actually, I'm a writer. Me too, he exclaimed. A poet, to be precise. And I do graffiti. Yes, I saw. I like the way you spray. Okay, whoops. For a moment, I thought he was staring at my breasts. Then I realized he was examining my arms for tracks. Slight problem here. Come on, let's go, he said, and walked round the counter. It was getting kind of stuffy in there anyway. He smiled sweetly. Romantic told me his family had moved from Puerto Rico 10 years before. By the sound of things, the move had not been all positive. The family banana farm back on the island had been left in the hands of feckless relatives and seized by the state. His father had died after spending years in jobs that made him miss the farming he'd yearned to leave behind. His mother worked in a botanica, selling the ritual beads and statues on Avenue D, selling potions to the desperate, vengeful, and lovelorn. As he spoke, we drove through grim, grimy buildings with cracked windows, fire escapes running up their flanks like scars. Let's go to the New Eureka, he said suddenly. Steve Metal goes there to score sometimes, and one time he read a song lyric. He was pretty good, too. Inside a narrow storefront with brick walls, there was a stage at one end. As Romantic steered me in, a poet was ranting on stage, a gaunt brown woman with long dreadlocks, piled into a red, green, and gold turban. Her verse veered between Spanish and English, and she stood stock still on the tiny stage while her voice ranged and raged. Broken-winged birds, Del Barrio, where are our children? Pushed into line, but still doing time. Trapped by a hate designed to make them second-rate. They fly away into a tricky dream they call heroin. Anyway, we missed Steve Metal. He'd been there an hour ago, and the guy behind the bar said he had a skinny white chick with him, acting kind of crazy, almost fell off a stool a couple of times. Thrill. Obviously, Thrill. Any idea where they went? He said, try save the robots. An imposing black man in a fedora hat and a waistcoat over a white T-shirt stood at the door to save the robots, set into a blank concrete wall. It could have led into a garage or hangar. Hey, Benji, Romantic said, hugging his immense girth. This is Anya. She's a writer from England. We're just going to check out the scene, take a quick dip, in and out. Swim right in, the big man said, nodding at me with an unfathomable gaze. Strobes crashed and juddered across the concrete cinder-block walls, covered in spray-painted parades of autographs. Some sort of fancy dress party was going on. A womanish man crooned on the stage, the old Petula Clark song, Downtown. Welcome to downtown, well below the belt. The old gender flip was hip in here. Away across the ocean, these Lower East Side transvestites in tight sequins and outrageous eyelashes reminded me of their British sisters, though they were more prom night, less panto dame. They batted their eyes at Romantic from the bar. "Hi, ladies," he called out. "Donde, Mr. Man?" "All the way down," rasped a beehived, beefy blonde. Was she? "Want I should show you? It's awful dark down there." "Gracias, but I find my own way," Romantic replied. He didn't even say excuse me as we stepped over people sitting on the floor nodding as if they were about to crash, and they certainly didn't notice. Taking the downward direction was like stepping back in time to the Middle Ages. We wound through damp stairways and dank stone corridors, seemingly dripping slime. The light was feeble and flickering, and our footsteps ricocheted around. The steps were many. How low would we go? Oddly, I never doubted this stranger, Romantic. His quiet assurance provoked confidence. When he hesitated before a door, I automatically took up position, one step behind. In that alert instant, in those alien surroundings, there came a familiar yet little-known sound. Thrill! Moaning a bluesy version of the Newton Streets for Sale. Taken at a pace 3 times slower than the original, she swung the song like a Billie Holiday lament. Romantic and I stood and stared as the door swung open. Amazingly, hidden inside the squalor, the room was beautifully tiled like a Roman bath inlaid with a frolicking dolphin motif. Striking a weird industrial note, 2 trestle tables were set up along one wall, laid with what looked like chemistry sets, flanked by small bags of flour, stacked neatly to the side. An acrid, suffocating scent cut the steamy air. The glow of a weird chandelier twinkled off the glass tube that Thrill twirled between her fingers as she crooned. Naked, she reclined in a shallow, octagonal pool of water, sunk into the center of the floor. Her head leaned against Steve Metal's bare, bony shoulder. A whooshing noise punctuated her verse as Thrill inhaled through the pipe, Metal tenderly cradling her into position. Her head dropped back, and the curve of her white throat hung exposed, as if inviting Metal to sink in his fangs. She resumed her crooning, apparently happy in this subterranean combination leisure center and freebase factory. I itched to rush in, yell, and grab her, but Romantic gripped me firmly. "This used to be the orgy room till the joint got busted," he whispered. "So now it's an angel dust lab?" I hissed back. "Way better." He examined the scene. "The girl, she your friend?" He murmured. I nodded. He your guy?" "No way, but she's my sister," I hissed back. Angelo gazed at me deeply. Together we walked into the room at a slow, easy pace, calculated not to startle the wild animals.